Doing his thing.
Two raiders plumb the depths of their experience to make sense of a world gone completely insane. Subscribe for the word. Like and leave a comment. Stranger by the hour.
Yep.
Two raiders.
My bad.
That's all right. We're doing it live. Welcome back, everybody. It's going to be episode 93 coming at you at May 18th. And it's our great honor this evening to be hosting a man with a massive internet following right now and awesome channels covering inmates transitioning back to normalcy and also positivity across. So you got Fresh Out, and that's covering all of the prison stories. And then you got Big Herc 916, and that's positivity. Spirituality. So everybody, I'd like to introduce you to, if you don't already know him, this is Marcus Timmons, also known as Big Herc. Man, welcome to Stranger by the Hour. Thank you.
Hey man, I thank you and appreciate the introduction, man. It's a pleasure being here.
Hey man, thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I figured we would just start a little bit like this. So Aaron and I, being prior military guys, just I guess catch you up to speed. So I joined in late 90s. I got out 2016, so I got right about just shy of 18 years active service. Then I did contracting for 5 years, and all my active duty times, the Marine Corps, started as a grunt, ended in a special operations unit as the special operations bomb tech. So I was cutting bombs apart. So that's my military history, and Aaron can pop on his. But so talking, Aaron, you want to?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
good,
so
brother.
same kind of like Cody. I was in the Marines from like 93 to when I get out 2015, and then got into contracting. So kind of institutionalized in that way my whole life until basically a couple weeks ago. I quit the contracting gig, and now we're doing some other stuff. But
so we kind of use that as an analogy for like the heroic journey, right? So looking at the archetype of the hero, it's a fellow that like leaves his village and goes into like a crucible of some sort and gains knowledge from that experience, whatever terrible, harsh battles, could be prison, and brings that experience back to the tribe, right? To enrich everybody, man. And you've definitely gone through those crucibles. And what I would like to start is, along that path, what brought you to your current state of spirituality and having a awake view of how the world actually functions? Was it a single event, or was it multiple straws that broke the camel's back? And then was it a dude that was like, hey man, this is how shit works?
yeah, and if you could start with a quick once around the world for our guys that maybe don't know, kind of like your backstory, just as briefly or as detailed as you want to do it.
Okay. My backstory is I grew up in Sacramento. My mom had me pretty young. She was 14. My grandfather was retired military. A lot of retired military in Sacramento and North Highlands at this time. So my mom, when she had me, it was, this is back, 70s. So it's pretty taboo. Nobody really talked about it. To this day, nobody has really talked about who my dad is, but it's one of those things like people know, but nobody says nothing. So it's like the neighborhood secret, but it's not really a secret. But anyways, so I grew up, and my mom, she did a great job educating me. I read a lot of books as a kid. Just was really into academics and scholastics and stuff like that. So I kind of excelled in that area with a straight A student. Later, my mom got married when she graduated high school, and we moved and eventually ended up living on Treasure Island in the Bay Area. And in that area, I lived there on that military base in the 80s when it was a Navy base, and it was some of the best times of my life. I mean, I had a lot of different exposure to culture, a lot of different friends, everybody there, Navy, Marine, Coast Guard, just a lot of camaraderie, a lot of American patriotism, man. Just seeing the ships come through there for Fleet Week, seeing the Blue Angels, going to the like the historic base where you see all the old military stuff. It always resonated with me. So I was really big on country, and that was just how I felt. Even though I went to school in San Francisco, so I spent a lot of time there, skateboarding, BMXing, going all through through the city and having a good time. And basically was a kid, who never got in trouble. Always did get in school, straight A student. I was a 4.0 student all the way up until probably my sophomore year in high school. But leading up to when, I left the military base, moved back to Sacramento, I ended up, kind of felt like, that transition where you go from being like a boy, kind of transition to being a man, 12, 13, 14. Around 14 is when I really started having issues, kind of trying to find my identity. And being one of the few black skateboarders back there with Jimmy Z's on and, skull and bones, tank tops and t-shirts, I didn't really fit in. And I felt like I had to assimilate into that culture more of the school I went to in Sacramento. So I kind of ditched the skateboard and started playing more basketball, trying to fit in and into that genre. And in the process, got drawn to the streets by seeing guys who were hustling, got caught up selling drugs at 15, ended up going to juvenile hall for like 6 months, like juvenile hall and the boys ranch. So I did about 6 months there when I was 15. So at 15, I'd already had a gun pulled on me. I'd already been in fights. I'd already got caught up selling dope. I had people working for me. I had, was carrying a Rambo knife. I was doing all kind of stuff at 15. So I'd already been exposed to this really dark side of society. And luckily my mom got married when I got out of juvenile hall. So that kind of took me out of there. She got married to another guy in the Coast Guard, and we went to Huntington Beach, Southern California. Now, that was a culture shock. I went from being in a really hood environment where people were gangbanging, and it was just like you had to flex to get any respect, to going to a place where I felt like I could pretty much beat up the whole school. These kids were so nerdy. They were well off. I mean, the kids who, they were wearing Birkenstocks to school and, talking about going to college and taking the, pre-SATs and all this stuff. And, some of these guys had boats in their backyards and hot tubs and, all these different things. I've never seen that, guys whose parents were, CEOs and lawyers and, just really a lot of money. And it was so hard to fit in, man. I felt like it was just a very hard time mentally to really try to assimilate into that culture. So then I was, my junior and senior year was a rough time. And as soon as I graduated, I probably should have took my ass into the military, but my mom ended up moving because they got transferred, and I went back to Sacramento, got right back in some shit, shootouts, fighting, gang banging, ended up getting caught up, in a home invasion, driving a guy. They did a home invasion. I got caught up, ended up doing 2 years and 8 months in CYA, which is California Youth Authority back then. And so during that time, I was in Grass Valley at fire camp. I actually stayed out of trouble when I was in there. I worked in the kitchen, did a bodybuilding show, did some art competitions, but I didn't have any mentors. So from that time from 18, really 15 upwards, I didn't really have any male mentors in my life. So I was kind of just still trying to find my way. I mean, my mom got married, but I was only around that guy for like 2 years. So it wasn't like he was really a dad to me. So I do my time in CYA, fire camp, get out, move back to Southern California, end up getting involved in an adult entertainment game because I was like, oh man, I'm gonna make a lot of money. I'm in shape. I'm gonna have sex with all these women and get paid, be the man. But you don't make no money. You work a lot. You do a lot of work and little pay. So that really wasn't the game plan. So did that for a little while. Ended up moving back up to Northern California. Got right back into shit. Selling drugs, hustling, carrying pistols. Just still on that path. And eventually that led to me going back to Southern California after I moved around a little bit. I stole drugs, did a lot of little stuff in between there, just was all in the streets, everything from cocaine to meth to weed. I was selling it all, guns, all type of stuff. And then I got caught up with some guys who did a bank robbery and ended up doing a hostile takeover in the bank in Ventura County, high-speed chase, 20, 30 cop cars, helicopter. I mean, jumped across the freeway, all kind of crazy stuff, man. And when I got arrested that day, and I looked out, I got arrested on Ventura at the beach boardwalk, and there was cops everywhere. And they put the cuffs on me, and when I seen the ocean in the distance, I was just
damn,
thinking, man, why couldn't I just stayed in bed today, man? And I ocean, and I'm like, man, this is a wrap. This is it. Game over. Like it's just like I'm gonna be going away for a while, and I gotta change. So I had an epiphany when I was laying on my stomach with the handcuffs behind my back, and the cops were kind of laughing, like, yeah, we had a good one today, a little action today, and I'm like, damn, man, this is like not the kind of action I want to be involved in. But
yeah, because they're all going home that night.
I was say they're going home.
They're going home, bro. I'm not going home for years. I don't know.
Man.
I didn't even realize how much time I was looking at. But once I got to the county jail, and then I got to the federal holding facility, I got around some people, man, and So
hold on, just real quick. So, and forgive my ignorance. So, because it was a bank robbery, is that why it's a federal? That's why you're going into a federal facility?
There are state bank robberies, but if it's federally insured, it's considered affecting interstate commerce. So the feds actually come in and they take jurisdiction. So initially, if it's a state case, you could possibly get bail. Feds is a lot harder to beat because the feds, the way the laws are, they have mandatory minimums. So I was looking at like 12 years mandatory, upwards of 20 years if I went to trial. So once I got into the system, I mean, and the thing about the feds, which is different than the state, you have a lot of guys, child molesters, women beaters, drug dope fiends, drug guys who are just a lot of, it's a mixture of really a lot of lowball, just guys who are just probably some of them living on the streets. It's not the same level. When you get to the feds, you start talking to guys. I mean, I met guys in there who used to fly plane loads of dope. Guys who were making, $2-3 million a month. Guys who are big drug dealers. Guys who were embezzling money. They had Ponzi schemes, all kind of stuff. And I started really paying attention. And I'm like, damn, man, I was a dumbass, man. The crime I did ain't shit, And then I started reading the law, going to a law library, talking with guys, and they're telling me stuff, and they're like, hey, man, you know about this and that. And so my energy was already kind of channeled towards rehabilitating myself. So naturally, I gravitated to more of the guys who were educated, who knew about the law and could teach me stuff. And that led to me just going on my path. And eventually, when I got to the pen, I met a couple mentors, man. And, it just like I was seeking something and I didn't know really what it was, but I knew it was the truth because I knew what I did wasn't the truth. I knew because of the things I had as far as, what I had been brought up with. Nobody in my family was a criminal. Nobody, it wasn't no negativity in the household. Wasn't nobody blaming anybody for why you couldn't succeed. I was really good in school. I could have went to college. I could have did a lot of stuff. So I knew that I had strayed so far away and I had to figure out how did I get there. And so for me, it was like that started my journey on just doing a lot of reflection. And in the process, I met some good people in USP Lompoc who kind of took me under their wing, older people, older gentlemen. And that's how I kind of went on my path of, rehabilitate myself, because there's no rehabilitation in prison. You can go in there and you can get busy. You can go in there and get caught up in all the politics and all the bullshit. You can sell dope. You can, get connections and get out and do other things. I mean, or you can get in there and you can really work on yourself and try to find balance and purpose and all this stuff. And that's kind of what I did once I got in there.
I mean, it seems like that's the very rare way out. it seems like once you'd be in there, it'd be set up to keep you in there, right? Like Aaron and I have talked about this with other career paths, where once you're on the rails of that career path, they're designed to cradle to grave you from there. And if you don't start to look for any other way out, like the system is perfectly happy, whether that's military, whether that's a 9 to 5 at Dunkin' Donuts. If you don't ever look anywhere else, the system is totally happy with you staying right there for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Was it did you find it hard to, like, you came in there and you had some mentors and you got your head around it a little bit and you started to work on yourself? Was it a challenge to kind of stay out of the politics and the stuff that could got you in some trouble or extended your stay there? Or was it like, hey, if I keep to myself and I'm doing my thing, then it's not that hard? Or was there a lot of like people trying to pull you into bullshit?
Well, the place I was at, they call it Castle Grayskull. It was one of the oldest penitentiaries in the country. Carmine Persico, the head of the Colombo crime family, was in the same unit I was in. I mean, they had guys in there who were major drug dealers, cartel guys. I mean, there was a lot of heavy hitters at this prison. I mean, some of these dudes, at this prison, you never seen anybody go home. They go from that prison to maybe another prison, but they don't go home. You've never seen it. So it's like very, very dim as far as what you see there as far as inspiration. A lot of the guys, the average time there is probably 50 years. People doing 50 years. If you're doing a decade, you're short time. Oh, you're short timing. A decade is short time.
Damn.
Yeah.
So for myself, the thing is, I didn't come from no major gang neighborhood or any big hood. So I didn't have like homies from like, 60s or Compton or, the Oakland, any particular hood there that I knew. I knew nobody. So when I rolled up in there, it's like, dude, I'm in the dog pound, bro. This is like animals up in there. You gotta, and if you show any fear, any softness, these dudes sniff it out. These guys are experts at body language, the way you posture, how you talk, how you walk. They look for any chink in your armor and they'll try to bust your cheeks or bust your head. So I just kind of like practice reading people and carry myself in a way where I put like almost like a invisible force field around myself. Long Park was the type of place, if you walk by somebody and you don't even say nothing. It ain't like on the streets, like, I go to the gym, hey, what's up, man? You say what's up to somebody there, they're like, man, what the fuck is up, man? Do I know you? Dude, you got a problem? You don't say what's up to nobody. It ain't these dudes. Some of these dudes have been down 30 years, 40. I mean, killers, bro. There was guys there from like when the Cubans came in way back in the day, like in Scarface. They were killers. They're doing dudes in there doing time. So there's like you gotta really know how to carry yourself, and everything's based on you kind of creating your persona and building your reputation there. So I kept to myself, and luckily, like the Crip guy I was in cell with, the 60 guy, he was pretty cool. He kind of got me a job in the kitchen where, I had a job where it's called pay you no mind, because I wasn't trying to work in the factories. I wasn't going to become, if I was a gangster bank robber on the street, I'm not going to go to prison and get a job, a real job. I should have got that on the street. So I got a job where all I did was make toast every morning. So I would get up, make toast, and they would make toast. They would have toast days like maybe 3 times on the weekends and then maybe 1 time during the week. And that's a job that was coveted because you had all the free time. You can go work out. You can go, I can go study in law library. I can kind of do my own thing. And so, I did that job and it allowed me to kind of mix and mingle. But another thing, because I didn't have all the homies in there, I had not one home. I'd never seen anybody I knew from the streets in prison, which a lot of these guys had friends because they'd been through the system in different institutions. But because I did do adult movies and I was considered like a semi-porn star, when dudes found out and I didn't tell nobody, they're like, hey, man, you was out there, man. You was in the movies. And I'm like, which movies, man? I'm like, movies. And I'm like, yeah, I did. He said, man, you was out there. Oh, man, you was robbing banks. I'm like, Yeah, man. They're like, oh, you a motherfucking gangster, bro. You cool. All right, man. And so
Nice.
that gave me a pass. And in
Yeah.
long time, the guards is like gangster. The guards ain't no joke. So when you go to laundry to get your laundry, if the guard don't like you and he sees you're a punk, hey, get this dude right here, get this asshole right here, them tight ass pants right there and these old ass shoes. They'll give you some shit. So you'll be like, fuck, man. So yeah, they give you free clothes, but if you ain't nobody, you're gonna have to pay somebody to get you some good shit that you can wear out to the yard. So they see when the guard see that, he's like, oh man, this is that dude I told you about. Oh man, this dude right here, and give him some new shit. So the guard gave me some good shit. So that allowed me to kind of be cool with dudes from like DC, dudes from New York, dudes from Chicago, a dude over here, because the feds is divided. You're from California, you're white, you got to sit at this table. I'm from Sacramento, I'm black. If I'm a blood or crip, or if I'm non-banging, I got to sit at a specific table. You can't walk through you can't split the tables. You split a table, you might get shanked in the kitchen. You got to walk around. You don't, but do tell you sit down. You don't sit somewhere. Some of these dudes have been sitting at these same chairs for maybe 2 or 3 years. You sit at their table in the wrong chair, you're disrespecting, you can get cut for that. So there's a lot of hidden rules and stuff. So, eventually, guys like, oh man, it's like, hey man, you can sit up there, man. Ain't nobody, those are neutral tables. So I sit up there. It might be me, a black guy, maybe at the neutral table, it might be a Mexican dude or a white guy. But these are people who are maybe Christian, non-gang associated. Because see, once you get yourself involved in the clique, right? Once you start walking the track with a group of dudes, start spreading, eating food with these guys, talking with them, now you're in, and you can't just leave. So
now they're gonna expect you to have their back if
like
they
that.
need, or you're basically, your friendship comes with some strings.
Hey, you're affiliated.
They tell you don't. They're like, hey Herc, man, dude, don't spread with that dude. What do you do? Oh man, that dude. He'd be like, hey Aaron, man, I got some sardines, some shrimp, bro. I can hook it up. We can eat. And you're hungry. You're like, fuck, bro. I ain't got no commissary. So what he's doing is pulling you in. So whatever this motherfucker's involved in, now you're a part of, through default, whatever the hell he's involved in. And you don't know what type of shitball this dude might have been in another institution, if he's a rat, if he's on some weirdo shit. So, dude, it's like navigating the gauntlet, man. And you got to know who you can spread with, who you can't spread with, who you should talk to, and sometimes, people see that you're a guy of a certain caliber. They're like, hey man, let me holler at you. Hey man, don't talk to that guy. Do this over here, man. Watch this. Do your program, bro. You'll be all right. So I was fortunate that I had a couple guys looking out. And, my thing was I just hung out in the law library. And through the law library, I met my first mentor, which was this older white guy in my unit. He was ex-Vietnam veteran, super smart, used to make synthetic heroin. He had a 30-year sentence. And he was like,
the Sacklers got that locked up. They don't want any fucking competition, man.
This guy, he was super smart, man. People say he was crazy, but he was super smart. And he used to see me going to a law library. And he's like, hey, man, youngster, I look up and he's at the third tier because it's like 3 tiers up. And these cells in Long Park are hella old. So it's about as big as your bathroom. Imagine a bunk bed in your bathroom, your toilet, and then literally, for real, your toilet is right next to the bunk. So you can literally jump from your toilet to the top bunk. And the top bunk is right here. So you got this much space. So you can't even really sit up. You got to like lean over. But he called me up there and he's like, what are you doing, man? I said, hey, man, I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to get out early. He said, is that right? I said, yeah. And he's like, well, here, I got some stuff for you to read. And so this is like my first dose of the red pill. I'd already had kind of a red pill through some guys who kind of told me stuff in the county. But this guy gave me just like a big red pill. And it was like congressional acts. It was, It was, he gave me some stuff about like some historical background on the Constitution. He gave me like a first edition Black's Law Dictionary to read. He gave me
that's it, man.
He gave me a copy of some pages from the United States Attorney Manual. He was able to get the United States Attorney's Manual a copy, which you can't have. But his daughter, he put her through Chapman University, and she worked for the Federal Reserve. So she was able
What?
she worked for the Federal Reserve. She came. She couldn't really. They had a like.
Dude, but he got her plugged in with the real gangsters, man.
The real gangsters.
He was in there. He's like, yeah. I mean, dude, she was ball. I mean, she came to visit him a couple of times and would send him stuff, but she was really like, because of her position, she looked at her dad as like a loser. But he was super smart. I mean, this guy was making $30,000-$40,000 a week on the street selling heroin. He was making a lot of money. But anyways, he had got a copy of this attorney manual, and he used to let me read it like page. And I the first night I read this shit, bro, my head hurt, man. I felt like I was going to explode. Like literally, I couldn't sleep, and I'm like, fuck, I got played.
Oh, you mean buddy. with your sentence and stuff?
I got played just on the way I thought about the world. If I had this knowledge, man, I would be doing. Maybe I would have went to law school or did anything besides entertain. Bank robbery is low frequency. That shit, man. I mean, when I got there and I started talking to guys who robbed, I'm like, these dudes are pieces of shit, man. I mean, this ain't my crowd. I mean, there were some smart guys too, not to say everybody, but some of these guys had drug habits. They were feeding a habit. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't a dummy. I was going to use my money and start a company. But anyways, when I started reading this stuff, I'm like, dude, this is like, it was profound, man. When I started just these congressional acts, these different HR resolutions, just all this stuff that I was never taught in school or college. And it just like the stuff, he had some stuff like from the IRS about taxes and how they were created and all these different things. And dude, I was like, it just blew me away, man. And when, and then when other black guys would talk to me, like, oh man, be careful, man. That dude, Harold, he's crazy, man. I said, nah, bro, he ain't crazy. You guys up in here watching goddamn the Lakers and fucking out here doing this bullshit. I said, this dude right here is the truth. So I just started really just every night I go up to a cell, I would study. He would have me look up stuff for him. He's teaching me all this stuff. And I just try to absorb as much as I could. And, because he helped other guys with the law. They didn't really sweat me hanging out with this white guy because we would eat together. And that's a no-no, white guy, black guy. But because he did the law and he helped all these other brothers get back into court and stuff, he was able to kind of navigate. But he never left the unit. All he did was stay up in there. He maybe go to chow, but he never really left. He stayed in the cell all the time, just studied and writing motions. And so he was one of my first mentors. And then I had another mentor, an older black guy from South Central, who very articulate. He carried himself in a very kind of like I would say really dignified manner. His mannerisms, even though he's from the hood, but he wasn't like the other hood guys. And we would talk, and he introduced me to Conversations with God, the book. I read that a couple times. Some other spiritual stuff, and we would have these talks. Like he was like literally, he's 20 years older than me, so it's almost like talking to my dad. And he made me recognize that I have more value. And he didn't hang out either with all these guys. And we would walk the track, and we would look at stuff, and we would just trip out, man. It was like its own. It was like, imagine a prison yard is the micro of the macro. So literally on the prison yard, you walk through Compton, Inglewood, Redondo Beach, Huntington Beach, Chicago, Philadelphia. You see everything. Over here, it might be all the Southsiders and Mexican La M. Over here, you might see some Norteños. Over here, you might see some Skins and some Woods. Over here, getting down. Over here, you might see some Florida boys. So you've seen all this, and you just pay attention and just study these people and see. And man, that's what I spent my time doing. And that was my introduction. And I just carried on that through my whole time, just studying and trying to get out from prison early, man. And I met some great people in a really dark place.
Do any of the guards take advantage of the fact that, hey, there's a Colombo crime dude right there? Like, like this guy knows or has owned probably district attorneys, dudes that have, you see the movies, Godfather, whatever, all this shit, right? Like I guess it'd be interesting for me to know if the guards are ever talk to any of these guys who have very clearly swam through waters that you'll never even see, right? So like if this dude's a mob boss, I mean, like, hey man, did you actually own a district attorney? And the guy's probably like, yeah, like what do you mean one? Like 7, 8 of them, you know? And is there any of that? Did you ever see anybody like reach into that pool of knowledge to gain anything?
I said what's up to Carmine. He used to sit in front of the TV and kind of, he'd watch his little shows. Nobody messed with his shows. He had a little area outside, I think like a little garden area. He had another guy who would kind of shadow him. I was cool with him. And that guy who was cool with him, he would let me read his Wall Street Journal, and he would let me try to check out his DuPont register. I mean, this guy was clean. This guy, it's an Italian guy who probably was a underboss or somebody, but he was like, he walked the yard with Carmine all the time, kind of him and Carmine spread it together. He would buy the food, make the pasta together. But yeah, man, I seen that guy go into the counselor's office one time and make a call. But the reason he was in Lompoc on the West Coast, because they had to get him far away as possible from the East Coast. See, on the East Coast, he wasn't running shit, and they figured by having him at Lompoc that he was far enough away that he couldn't really control power there like he could if he was like at Terre Haute or anywhere on the East Coast. But there was a story, like a guy told me, Marcelli told me that at the time said that one of the guards were kind of messing with Carmine or was trying to like, some of these guards think they're tough or doing something. And I don't know if he was shaking his cell down or just unnecessary shit. But apparently somebody somehow presented that guy with a picture of his family on the street to let him know he could be touched. And he left Carmine alone after that. But yeah, Carmine, he was quiet, man. Old man, you would never know, bitch, shuffling. You would never know. This guy was the head of the Colombo family, man, straight gangster, dude. I mean, was on the cover of Time magazine back in the day, but quiet guy, very kept to himself. Most of the people, I was drawn to a lot of older guys, so I didn't really hang out with too many people my age. I mean, there was another guy, a Korean guy I used to talk to, work out. He used to work out on the yard with us. We talk and stuff. And there was another guy. A lot of these guys, man, nobody ever talked about what they were there for, but most of them are there for very high power crimes. Wasn't nobody in there for 2 or 3 years. If you were at Lompoc, you were doing probably a decade or better, minimum. Wow. And, I just tried to absorb. I was like early 20s, man. And I was just trying to get as much game as possible just on life. But when I started reading all this different material, it really opened my mind up that, school, society doesn't have a clue how all this shit works. And what you're exposed to kind of, it creates a mindset that this is what you're supposed to be doing, or this is your program. But that's not really your program. And once you start talking to other people and seeing other things, and I see how if you're like caught in a certain mind frame, you don't even entertain this over here. So for me in prison, I've seen all these different things, but I try to get around people that I can learn from that would open up my mind to other ideas. And that's what I did, man. I just like, I tried to read as much as possible, but just like a lot of the red pill stuff that I got there and the material and talking with these guys. I mean, the one brother who was my mentor, I used to walk the track with, he was doing 20 years, and he had literally tried to escape before and got caught. So they sent him to Marion, and he was basically underground for like almost a year before they let him back on a main population yard. And so he was telling me like, how crazy it is and how dirty the government is and stuff. And he was there with a guy who worked for the CIA named Edward something. I couldn't remember his last name, but he was telling me that was the guy who was next to him in another cell. And this guy worked for CIA and ran Black Ops. And he literally had a multi-million-dollar off the books company making money overseas for the government, but he pretty much owned it. But it was almost like he was like off the books, but still government, but couldn't be touched because he was in that black area. And so when all the shit came down with Oliver North and all this shit, the Iran-Contras, they needed a fall guy, and they needed somebody to kind of take the fall for having financed all these different things and running off the books businesses, and he was telling me that Edward told him that they convinced his wife, because he had properties, all type of shit. But like I said, he was out of the country. They convinced his wife to get him to come home, and they promised her if she got him to come back, they would give her X amount of dollars, so much property. She convinced him, because now he had diplomatic immunity where he's at. He came back. He became a war criminal, or they made him a traitor. They pinned a lot of the Iran Contra shit, the Oliver North shit that Oliver North was doing. They pinned it on, made him, even though he was doing it, but he was doing it under their government's guidelines. But when he came back, they vilified him, gave him 20-something years, and then he was saying, but the crazy thing, the guy was still a patriot. He was still he still believed in the government after they screwed him like that, man. But this guy was making the government. He said this guy was making millions. He was telling him all these stories about things overseas and just running these different corporations and money laundering things he was doing over there. And like he said, he didn't have any intentions on coming back, because he had worked himself up to a level where he was good. Even though he had a wife over here, he would have her come see him. But in order to arrest him, they needed him to come back on American soil. And when he told me that, I'm like, damn, man, these people, it's like when shit hits the fan, they throw everybody under the bus.
Well, what's hilarious is Aaron and I used to teach a targeting class where we would teach Marines how to target people with information, right? So say, for example, there's a guy in a country that we don't have a great relationship with, exactly like the thing you're saying, right? So then we would basically tell these Marines, like, hey, here's a menu of items of ways you can put leverage against that person to get them to come back into an area where you can target them. And it's greasy shit, man. I mean, the limit is whatever the local staff judge advocate will sign off on as legal.
It's just like, and you see it in these institutions and stuff, but like they, a lot of what they're doing that sounds super creepy and illegal and insane, it's technically legal in a lot of cases. Like they basically have these ways of like rationalizing things and setting it up. It's like, engaging in lawfare or whatever. But the crazy thing is like, the whole this is one thing that like kind of shifted my perspective, is like looking at the country as this like conglomerate corporation. And technically it is a corporation. It's not like, we all came up in these public schools and stuff where they're installing a version of reality in our heads, right? That's for our class of people, for like the poor, middle class, and lower people, right? People that are born into a higher rung on the ladder, they get a completely different version of reality installed. They get taught from the time, they can learn to talk about how you make money, how you use the systems to make you more money, how you can borrow money from the government for free. And they're tapped in. And it's just like, you can, it's funny because you're not prohibited from learning about it. They're just not going to install it in your head in school, so it's pretty fascinating. And I guess with all that time in there, you can, if you choose to use your time wisely, you can get plugged into some of the literature and like figure that shit out.
Well, the military is the same. I mean, I didn't look into any of this stuff until way, way late in my career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like what you just said right there, though. It goes back to access and exposure.
Yeah.
And the only reason, like I said, because I did have a lot of different, a lot of different cultural experience before I went to prison, it allowed me to talk to people, because people would always trip out like, hey, man, where are you from? What are you in here for? Are you in here for a credit card or doing this? I'm saying, no, bank robbery. They're like, oh, did you have a gun or a note? Because that may determine if I'm green. If I had a note, oh, you're not prone to violence. We might try to take your comments, or we might try to violate you. But when I said I had a gun, it makes people think twice. And then I was in good shape, so guys would be like, okay, it's not going to be an easy one. So maybe we shouldn't try this dude. But I would get that all the time because my mannerism was different. Where I carried myself, I was always working out. I knew what I was doing when I'm working out. I wasn't like gossiping or acting like some of these other kids, guys in there like kids. So people paid attention to that. But it's one of the reasons, even in the penal system, they have different levels. And typically, like the white collar guys who come in there who commit crimes, they send them to camps because they don't want like those guys to expose their game to the serious criminals. Because if you got a guy,
All right.
you know what I'm saying? Like take a guy from Compton or say Oakland or say, you know, a hood in Chicago, and this guy maybe with a Vice Lord GD, Crip Blood, whatever the case may be, and then he's very intelligent, but he's also capable of extreme harm if necessary. So he's a gangster, a real gangster. But now you give him the game that you were born with, and you're a weenie. See, a lot of them guys,
facts.
They're fucking weenies, bro. They use the military, you guys, to do their dirt. But if these guys had to step up, they would pee their pants. They're soft as butterbutt. You know what
Basically,
I mean?
the State Department.
Exactly. So they keep them at camps, and they don't put them around the really hardcore guys, because those guys, you know, these guys start, you know, you got a guy like, hey, man, well, you know, so-and-so, I heard he was in there for this. Hey, man, teach me that. How do you do that? And like you said, it's just information. Like a lot of times, I've been around a lot of rich people, and it's not that they're super smart. These guys, some of them are cokeheads, or they're into the hookers, but they had information. And if you get that same information, then you can apply the same knowledge and make the same kind of money. So that's why it's even in prison, there's levels. You got USP, you got a medium, you got a low, and you got a camp. At the camp, they got the pedophiles, the white collar guys, and sometimes they'll let like a guy who may be a low drug offender slip through and get in there. But the camp is all about snitching. Everybody telling everybody. But these guys, that's where they send a lot of these guys, unless they really don't like you, like a Bernie Madoff, and they'll let them get punished. But they keep us separate because they don't want you talking and sharing information. If there's a guy like even in the USP and you're really good with a pen, you can write up you can write up like paperwork. You know how the law works. You're filing stuff to court. You're helping people. They'll ship you. Get them out of here.
Oh, they don't want you helping.
Oh, hell no. If they see me and you and you're like, hey man, what is Cody doing in the law library? Oh man, he had like 5 dudes. He had like, man, a couple guys from DC, these other, what is he in there doing? And they walk, oh man, he has some guys, they're following these motions, they're getting this. Get him up out of there. Get him out.
Yeah.
And they'll ship you all to get you away. And then all the other guys, now their paperwork fails because there's nobody to help them. So if they
because that's their legal system. That's their legal system, not your legal system.
Right.
Man.
And that's writ large, is to prevent people from cross talking. Like if enough of us can have sit down at the table and have a conversation outside of their black-white paradigm, which goes across all things, it's just division, right? It's the old Masonic checkerboard shit. It's just dividing people to conquer, right? If enough of us sit down and start having these adult conversations, enough people start listening to them. It's like, well, shit, man, like those guys were military and they're saying corruption works like this. You know, that's Hector Bravo. He's saying the DOJ from the police from the officer standpoint is saying corruption works like this. And then Big Herc is saying from the other side that it works like this. And then you can see a signal between all three of us. You're like, oh, okay. Well, that's what they don't want to happen is the working class to start looking at each other like, wait a minute, man. Like, why the fuck do I hate my neighbor? Like this dude.
They would never want like, us 3 or us 4 or 5 talking. You got an ex-military, ex-bank robber, ex-correctional officer, and these guys are trained. They're telling this guy how to train better because he was on the street, but they're giving him, dude, that's right. Like, you got a black guy, Mexican guy, Asian dude, hell no. That's all the bullshit. I mean, it's so bad in prison. When I remember talking to a white guy, and the black said, hey, man, what are you doing talking to that white guy in the yard? I said, oh, man, that dude's from Orange County. He said, hey, man, don't be talking to them skinheads, bro. We don't talk to them. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, man. People are watching. So they've already set up an internal check mechanism. So they didn't even have to check it. So a black guy checked me for talking to a white guy, where the white guy had hit me up because he said, hey, man, look like you know how to train. Hey, bro, blah, blah, blah. What do you do for this? And I'm like, and like some dudes are watching, but I didn't pay, but people are watching me watching him, talking to him. So that's how, even like I said on the street. So like you said, when they see that, they either try to infiltrate or send somebody that looks like you to basically for a pack of cigarettes to get you out the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't. I mean, and you're seeing more. Well, because this whatever you want to call it, the controlling elite or the ruling class, whatever these people are, right? They're parasites. Like, yeah, the predator class. They're parasites. They don't create anything really. They just if they've developed a mastery in like controlling human consciousness, and so, and it's like we have these tools now, like these phones and the internet and stuff. They're simultaneously like our best tool and our like shackles, like they could be both. Like if you don't know what you're doing with the phone and the internet, like this thing will fucking put you in a prison in your brain, like for sure. Big time.
And when you say that these like ruling people, their whole thing is like either control through, like right now it's like mass manipulation, but using us, it's like we're mining for them. We're literally giving them information, ideas, and they take it. Don't create nothing, but when something serves their greater purpose, they just snatch it up. Whether you come out with an engine that runs off of water, oh man, he got that, man.
Oh yeah, they got that.
That'll get you killed real quick.
They got that.
You see that guy? That
guy, multiple.
The guy who said they said that the kid was racist, but the day before he came up there and the guy wasn't working, so he came back the next day.
And that was the security. He was a security guard, right? In the mass shooting.
He was an off-duty police officer for Buffalo. But the day before, the guy who was a white supremacist, they said, talk to a black guy that was there at that grocery store for over an hour.
I did hear that.
And he was on YouTube talking to somebody about that old trick of running your truck off hydrogen or running your car off hydrogen.
Yeah, he made a video. He filed for a patent. He had
that's where he fucked up.
He put it on TV, and when they seen that shit, dude, he showed the motor running, and it kept running off of water, and everybody was like, off of hydrogen, like you said. They were like, he had just filed for the patent. He's like, yeah, I came up with this. I just got my learn. We filed his patent on Instagram. I forget what YouTube. Dude, within less than 30 days, missile, they sent some dude over there, and this kid, we don't know. He just, and think about this. These people, right, who like this kid, how do you get the money for all that? How do you get the money to buy all that shit?
Right.
Yeah, he fucking worked at Wendy's or something, right? Like barely for like 2 weeks.
Come on, man.
Like it's
he
could barely buy a burger.
Yeah.
There was a hilarious, it was like Opie and Anthony, Patrice O'Neal, and like Bill Burr. They were talking about the other hydrogen car guy that got killed. Like out of Cracker Barrel, they like poisoned the dude. And same thing. It's like, oh, the Pentagon is sending a lieutenant colonel and somebody who's interesting. Like, hey man, Aaron and I have been in that gig a long time. I never heard of the office that would be sending these people to talk to the water car guy. You know what I'm saying? And then you never hear anything from it again, except for that guy fucking dies of an aneurysm at Cracker Barrel. Like,
dude. He said, they poisoned me. He ran out. His brother had the information. Said, dude, I'm done. I don't have nothing to say about it.
He's like, I don't know shit about nothing.
I don't know shit about it. But literally, he had a car that ran 300 miles and it off of condensation. So it had zero emissions. And they were like, is this for real? And then, like he said, somebody from the Pentagon or Defense came down there and talked to him, and that was a wrap, bro. But it's like, I don't know, man. People that think like all this stuff is coincidence,
people are incredibly naive, and it's, Cody and I struggle with this all the time because we're spending a lot of time trying to make people hip to the game a little bit, but people are naive. They especially like, I think people that are in and out of the correctional system may have a different perspective because they've been on the wrong end of the government's aggression, so they know what the government's capable of. But take your regular, like white middle-class people or whatever, they don't interact with the government, right? Except from afar. And they really do believe that the government's benevolent, has their best interest. Sometimes they fuck up and there's politics and, some of the politicians are bad, or we don't like this guy, but we like that guy. They don't understand that the entire thing is like organized crime, and that they will do at a certain level, they will do absolutely anything up to and including starting whole entire wars. They start whole fucking wars just to keep their racket going. And so, but when you try to tell people that, like Cody and I don't have the best method. We kind of just assault people with the truth. We're like, don't you see?
Well, it's 'cause this
it's
is
hard, you know, but like,
in our group of peers. So with our fellow military dudes, you know, this is my mistake, right? I make the mistake of assuming that they're going to give as much credit to this crazy shit I'm about to say, as to, you know, the credit they gave me the rest of the career. Like, so the rest of the time they would follow me down some road, which I just said was safe of IEDs. Like they would trust me with their whole fucking life. Right. And without blinking, without thinking twice. But as soon as I tell them like, hey man, there's these, ancient mercantilist families who are always been slavers and they're enslaving all of us right now. Like we're basically like a step away from all fucking being slaves. You're like, no, that's not how it works. No, that's you're like, bro, you believe me on all this other crazy shit. Like you think I just woke up and started lying to you now? It's
Well, you know,
Yeah.
it's crazy though, because like I got to talk in code. When I tell people, when I meet people, I kind of use certain words to fill people out because it's so crazy now that you got to watch what you say because a lot of people are so like you said, they're like, they cover their ears. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
yeah.
It's like, dude, they want to walk through this dumb, just, you know, I don't want to go back to sleep in the matrix.
I think how I found your channel was, I think it was around the time that Epstein got pinched. And I was listening to a British fellow called Sean Atwood. Sean, you know, you familiar with this channel?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got pinched out and he was doing time in Arizona for like ecstasy, I think is what he was doing.
Yep.
And that opened his eyes like, holy shit, like what's going on in this prison system in America, you know? And I think the algorithm brought me to your channel Fresh Out. And like, you're right. If you're tuned to an individual, like they will say things and you'll start to, it'll resonate with you and you'll pick up like, I bet that guy thinks about some other shit he's probably not saying on here. And then that led me to like Big Herc 916. You're like, oh, okay. Like one of the first times I served with Aaron overseas, he was with the snipers and I just dropped my pack in the bunkhouse right there because there was basically no room anywhere else. I was in a different platoon. And I could hear him and the rest of the snipers talking about some crazy shit, man. They were talking about like what the bleep do we know and like down the rabbit hole and like outer space. Yeah, quantum physics and stuff. And like that's not the typical stuff you would hear amongst the other groups. You know, it was like in our military company, it was like a couple little cliques. You know, you had like the direct action clique, you had the security platoon clique, you had the sniper clique, you got like the HQ clique, you know. So those guys were talking about some way different shit, right? But yeah, you're right. It's like code words nowadays. Like if you meet a dude at a cocktail party or something, you know, you're like holding a beer, you almost got to like do pass and relief. You got to be like, well, that guy didn't kill himself. Whatever, you know, whatever the thing is to see where the dude's at. Like how honest of a conversation can we have right now, or do I got to go stare at this fountain? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I would wait for you to say something, and if you said something like you said, especially like when I you know, because you know, when I hear people say, oh, like if you say something about like, oh yeah, Barack Obama, and then you say something else, I said, okay, you know what's up. But if you say, oh man, yeah, it's such a great this and that, I'm like, oh, you don't get it yet. You don't, you bought the whole racial what they put in front of your face, and you know, you're not ready. Because a lot of people, they would literally, their head would explode if they knew what these people are capable of. It's just like I was in there during 9/11. And, you know, when they passed the Patriot Act, that was a way for them to get that shit passed through and literally, in a blink of an eye, because of emotions, get Americans to sign off on some shit that was unproven. And, you know, I was in there and I remember, you know, them rounding up guys who considered to be domestic terrorists, and they locked them down, locked the prison down, and you know, all the stuff was going on. And then 2 years later, there's some guys who come up to, I was at another institution, and these guys from the church brought a video in, and they were showing us some stuff in this video that's never like footage, different things being filmed. They're like, you know, shit that didn't make sense, you know, firemen talking about explosives in one of the buildings.
Oh yeah,
about this whole Jewish company that nobody showed up that day, and
the dancing Israelis, and shit.
all this crazy shit, right? And people were like, a lot of people lost their lives, man. I mean, he put us in the war, man. I mean, it was just a whole situation. And people they're all, that was such a thing. I said, dude, you don't understand that they don't care. That was just collateral damage. These people are capable. I mean, they did it in Germany when Hitler wanted to create the war. He blew up one of the buildings and people.
The Reichstag.
Yeah, the Reichstag. Yeah.
He blew up the building. And so fast forward even after that, I was talking with a mafia guy who was, part of the Gambino family. He was going to be a captain. And he was saying when he was fighting his case, there were some guys there, a couple cells over from a friend of his these guys had tried to bomb the Twin Towers. Remember the Twin Towers guys?
Yeah, the first time. Yeah.
First time, but it didn't blow up. Well, they had these guys locked up. And so he was telling me that his friend was able to get a cell phone, but made it seem like he was connected and gave it to these guys. He would pass it to them so they can use it. And they were basically talking about other targets. And one of them was that 9/11 prior to it even happening. And so they were so bent on convicting these guys during these mafia wars in the late 90s that they got this information and they had access to it. But he said they never acted on it because they didn't want to let these guys get basically for their patriotic acts of getting this information. They didn't want to let the mafia guys because they needed the convictions. So they ignored the information. But these guys were literally talking about targets, other terrorist acts, and they were talking on the phones. They thought it was secure because the mafia dudes, and they were talking. And so they had hours and hours of just conversations through this phone that they had access to. And he was just telling me, dude, this shit is corrupt. This government dude, he's like, man, they were coming after us, man, and blah, blah, blah. And they just wanted us so bad because of convictions, this and that. And, they arrested me. Like all the mafia guys, they rounded us all up and this and that. And he was telling me stuff. And, like I said, in prison, like a lot of guys don't mix, but because how I carried myself, I would get these good conversations. And dude, I just thought about like, damn, bro, all those people died, all those people were deployed, all this shit happened. They knew about this shit. This guy got fucking $20 billion insurance claim. This guy over here bought this property over here.
Yeah, he owned it for like 6 months, didn't he? Silverstein or
yeah,
the fuck?
Lucky Larry.
He got the building for like a couple hundred, and then put insurance that was like $3 billion, $4 billion, and collected the money. And you're like, dude, this is a fucking scam.
There's a video of him talking about the Tower 7 demolition where he's like, oh, there'd already been so much loss of life. Later in the day,
we had to pull the plug or whatever.
To pull it. Like we decided to pull it. I'm like,
but that's
pull what, bro? Who'd you call it? What do you mean you decided to pull it? Like
this thing we're talking about, it's one of their main sources of power, in my opinion, because like most people, this is why you got to kind of talk in code with people and be gentle in talking because it's free. But most people, even if you showed them proof and evidence, you could show them, right? They can't accept that somebody would do something like that, right? So the fact that most people don't even believe it's possible to engineer these huge events or fake things or, make the fact that most people don't know or don't believe it's possible is like it's like a cloaking device. It allows them to be like invisible. So they can kind of operate with impunity. They know there's going to be a certain percentage of people like us that figure this shit out and they can mitigate that. You know how they mitigate it? As soon as we start talking about it, they've got an Alex Jones character, the meme with the tinfoil on his head. And so when we talk, people go, oh, these people are one of those nutcases, and they can mitigate it, so that it doesn't propagate. The word doesn't really get out. It gets stuck in these little silos. It's pretty impressive. Like I forget how mad I am about how fucked up these guys are. Just looking at it objectively, it's like, all right, you guys are pretty good at this shit you do. Like you run the whole fucking world. I mean,
there's times I'm not even mad at them. I'm like, fuck, man. Like it's like how stupid can we be for how long before it's like. Because it almost seems like it's so ham-handed now, and maybe that's a good segue to what the end game looks like. It almost seems like these maybe once you're living your life in an honest way, maybe corruption just becomes more evident to you. Like I'm just turning a shovel out here on this farm for most days. So when I see shit pop up on the ones and zeros, it's super easy to see what the fucking corruption is, man. But
let me ask you something as far as just without even. Just if you're just a regular person, right? And you've seen somebody that had a funeral with a gold casket.
Right.
What would that tell you? And this guy, drug addict, beat his baby mama before. I mean, when you see that type of audience, people show up for something like that. That type of display, that alone makes you think like, God, a gold casket for a guy. And when you watch what happened, even before I even jumped on, everybody's like, oh, I'm looking at it, and you're talking about somebody doing a pose, looking around for 15 minutes. This guy, prior to him kicking the window out, kicking the door out, dope fiend out, all this shit, right? This is where the end came. This is what it killed everything. Everybody went and voted for. This is what killed it. But you look at that, and the guy just sat there with his knee, and the guy sat there on the ground. And you're just looking around, and you're like, is this shit for real? Is this a Hollywood set?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of no masks.
A lot of weird shit.
There was a lot of weird shit in that, man. And it's just a Galilean dialectic shit, right? It's I mean, who the fuck knows? I mean, that's one of the things that we kind of talk to people about. Is like, look, we poke fun at all this shit because we have an exit strategy that we're like aggressively pursuing, right? Like, for a lot of these psyops, it's like it's almost impossible to unravel the intricacies of how they pulled it off. Well, it's not impossible, but it's almost like an exercise in futility at a certain point, right? Because you're not all the time. It takes me to figure out, like, is that a 33 spray painted in the back, and like, is that motherfucker wearing a pentagram in the back, and like, none of these cops are wearing normal cop shit. Like, where's all their
their uniforms don't match? Like, what the fuck's going on?
When I seen that, right, and I'm very perceptive, I'm like, did I look like a real ambulance? Was that a real? I mean, what about this? And then you see this guy knew this guy. He's married to this lady.
Well, I don't see. I didn't remember seeing a shit ton of like advanced life support go down, right? Like, you have like ALS and you have like the EMS guys, and the ALS guy, like, you got to be a doctor to tell you to tell a motherfucker's dead, right? So like, normally you do aggressive life-saving operations all the way till the doctor at the hospital is like, all right, it's a fucking wrap. This guy's done, right? Like, I didn't see any of that going down, right? And like,
it didn't make none of it made sense. And then the emotion, and then even before that, I remember going to Malibu the night before Kobe Bryant's helicopter crashed.
Oh, that's another one, man.
It was a weird vibe. I had a weird vibe, man. I drove right by there. And then it's like, when that happened, it's like, I tell you, man, it was almost like before the COVID, that was almost like they killed Superman. They got rid of Superman because when he died, it's like everybody around the world.
Especially in LA, though. That must have been crazy in LA.
Dude, it was, I knew somebody who flew helicopters, and he said he knew that guy. He trained under the guy who wrecked, the guy who crashed. He said it wasn't like that guy to go out that day. And, for him to fly, and I knew another guy who went to the facility that Kobe had out in Calabasas that everybody trained at. Now, that facility was a very high-tech facility, and he was partners with another guy in it. And he also told me they were dealing with a lawsuit with a big Chinese company because they were putting using the Mamba name in these pills, and they were putting something in there. It was a stimulant that wasn't legal, but it created this, I guess, a drug-like effect. And Kobe was suing them. There was like a $500 million lawsuit going on. In addition, they were supposed to go to court on that. So there was a lot of shit going on. LeBron broke his record. There's a lot of shit going on, man. And I just like, when I started looking at the symbols and reading all the stuff, I'm like, dude, what the fuck? This shit is crazy, man. And then here come the other thing with the Floyd right after that and all the other stuff and the lockdowns. I'm like, dude, this is like, they're basically putting down a cold prison move on the street.
Yes.
Well, I mean, COVID COVID's a cold prison move. It's solitary confinement. It's to put you in solitary until you fucking break. Like,
psychologically, mentally, and on top of it, when you talking about like, it's like first, the first thing they do in prison is when you're on lockdown, they control the food. What's the first thing they did to COVID? You can only get 2 pieces of meat. You can only buy 2 meats. You can only buy 2 meats.
Yeah.
You can only get certain. There were the lines, right? Lines of people Lines of people for food. And you had to walk one way. You know what they tell you in prison? Hey, 6 feet. Keep it 6 feet. Keep it. Look straight ahead.
Oh, the shit.
See, that's that signal we're talking about. Like if we talk enough, I didn't know that, but
prison, they tell you 6 feet, 6 feet. Face against the wall, nuts and butts, 6 feet. Bro, they don't, it's the same shit. So they took prison and jail shit, brought it to the streets. Now, the first, like I said, the first thing they do on the riot is the food. The second thing is, after the riot, they take the weights. You can't exercise.
So close the gyms down.
They close all the gyms down.
Close the gyms down.
Then now you have no way to get that out of you. So you're stressed out. You can't. Then
your nutrition sucks. Your exercise sucks.
You can't go to church. You can't socialize. So in prison, you're in your cell. You're using your mirror. Hey, Cody, Aaron, hey man, drop me a suit. Bro, what's going on? You're like, you're stressed out. The same thing, bro. It's a psyop, bro, and it worked. It broke a lot of people.
Broke.
Man, people went on drugs. People overdosed.
Killed themselves.
And I think it I don't think like we suffer from it. We're pretty. I'm saying I don't think we suffer from it, but there's this like layer of despair, and hopelessness. I've been noticing. It's like I just think that the COVID thing, like 9/11, a change in trajectory for the country. Like you can trace it, right? Boom. That's you're going one way. Boom. Now we're going this way. COVID's another one. Like those, there is the before COVID time and the after COVID time. There's before 9/11, after, before the Kennedy assassination, after. They do these course corrections. And I think they're a lot more well orchestrated and planned out than people would want to believe they are. And I think that these guys are like high level, like wizards, man. Like not like shooting lightning out of your fingertip type wizards, but they're performing this like occult. I don't know. It's hard to.
Well, they're definitely spelling.
Well, they're doing shit like and like I'll give you an example of like a negative example and then a positive example using you, Herc. So like these guys are alchemists. They have the ability, to they're transmuting not like base metals into gold. They're transmuting the human will. Okay, so they have the power to like change consciousness, right? You being locked up for a decade and then coming out and making a successful business out of that. You've got a bunch of successful businesses that came from that experience. That's a form of transmutation. That's you taking, one kind of energy form and then transmuting it into something positive, right? That's a good application of the stuff that I think these high level creeps, they know how to do that with everything. They know how to take something from one format. It's all just energy and currency and stuff, right? So they know how to do that. They can take something and change it into something else that benefits them. And the way they use it's fucked up. But like if you knew more about their techniques, it's like I don't like all this. I definitely don't like this Luciferian, satanic, occult bullshit. But there's some information inside some of that Gnostic shit that these Freemasons and stuff know that's useful, It's just I don't know how you get it without being a fucking Freemason creep or whatever.
And that's the thing. Like it goes back to prison when you say why they don't like a lot of felons to vote, why they don't want you to have a gun, because you get this game. I mean, I talked to a lot of the guys where I used to get a lot of my books from were ex-military. Some of these guys, have been Vietnam veterans. They're doing a lot of time, but they have these books and knowledge and stuff that you can't readily find on the street. But because you've been able to pierce the veil, you've been able to see things because you've been in the inside of the government working as, in the military, and then you come to prison and then you see the whole full circle and you realize that, you've been duped, man. And the thing is, the only difference between them and us is having, like you said, the resources, but also it's having this information. It's like there's a book called The Gnostics. There's another book called The Harem Key, and it talks about, on the surface level, you might know somebody who's a Mason, and they go to the meetings and whatever, but they're like this entry level. It's just like an entry level mob guy, you just right. You have like the inner workings, right? The inner workings when you might get in now and you're learning about something else as far as like these meetings, and it's not like, okay, they might have like, certain what they consider to be ritualistic stuff, almost like fraternity guys where they pledge. Yeah. But all that is just to show that you're willing to go along with it and follow, and then that way we can kind of see that you're a team player. Then the next level is when, you know, possibly we get you to go somewhere like an Epstein Island or one of these little fucking Hollywood parties with some weird shit, and seeing if you're down to participate in this shit. And in that place, it's like the old CIA move they used to do back in the day in Hollywood, when they would have these guys, they would have these basically hookers set these congressmen and different people up for blackmail. It's the same thing. You go in there, now you participated in maybe something that's homosexual, maybe there's some young kids there, maybe there's something there, but the fact that they have you on camera is that enough to where we can hold this over you. Everybody, I feel, in high level politics at this point, especially a lot of these guys who are trying to get in, they have somehow compromised them. The only other way is if you're through nepotism and you're born into it, you don't have to go through all that. But I've seen it in Hollywood. Hollywood is all nepotism. I mean, I'm a writer. I wrote a script, and I've written books and stuff. And I've seen, like, you know, when you go to these parties or you try to network with people, if you're not gay and you're not related, or if you're not related to somebody, or if you're not willing to let these people violate you, you're not going to get anywhere. So for the girls, you might have a Weinstein situation, but for the men, it's about seeing if they can get you to bow down, you know, and how far you'll go. And then once you get in, if you decide at any point to kind of spill the beans or say something, they're gonna say you're crazy, like Mel Gibson, or they're gonna say you're an alcoholic, or they're gonna just basically say you have some mental issues, and you'll just
they'll get you like Kanye. They'll get you like Kanye, and they'll reprogram his ass.
Yeah, Kanye, he's not the same person. He came back, he's not the same person. But that's what they do. They'll pull you. Because, see, Kanye was exposed. Kanye, when he went to Paris, right? You go to Paris and you go to those fashion shows. Those girls averaged like 14 years old, those models, 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, Luke Bernal just didn't kill himself either. The French guy that was given all the he was the French modeling agency guy that was in cahoots with Epstein.
Yeah, he committed suicide. They said in the cell in Paris.
Yeah.
But like, you go there, and once you get involved in that shit, like I've been, and when I was in LA, even in the porn industry, there's a lot of, like, Ron Jeremy, right? For instance, let's take Ron Jeremy. Now he's got dementia. He's crazy. He can't stand trial. This guy was a gatekeeper for these people. He used to do a lot of foul, but he also knew about all these other powerful studio wigs, and they would be involved in this shit. And so he knew that you fucking a kid, you doing this. And so now Ron Jeremy, somehow they made him a vegetable. He'll never be able to talk. You think Ron Jeremy's going to go through 14 rape charges and not take somebody with him?
Right.
Got rid of his ass. So the game, Hollywood, politics, this whole plan, it all ties in together. And whether somehow getting you tied into some sexual shit, or possibly they get you tied into somehow being involved in some drug shit because you didn't unknowingly flew a plane and you had a guy in there and he had whatever drugs, so they can tie that back to you. But they always make sure they got to have something on you, man. And that's how they move. So it's not like they're these crazy alchemists and they're super smart. It's just that they're playing with shit that we could play with, but it's their game. And then if you don't want to play with it like that, and they feel like, Aaron, you're not going to go to this party, because I've been invited, oh man, Aaron, you're not going to go to the party. And you get there and you're like, what the fuck is this? And it's like, okay, at about 10 o'clock, you start seeing some weird shit start happening. Now at 10 o'clock, you can either hang, or you can, like, people start leaving. Now, if you decide to hang out afterwards, now you're a co-conspirator. But you've seen this guy over here getting fucked in the ass, and then this guy doing some shit, and you're like, God damn, that's Senator so-and-so with the rapper so-and-so. What the fuck? Oh, that's so-and-so right here doing this with so-and-so. But now you're in here, and you're like, so-and-so comes up to you, and like, what the fuck? And like, hey, Aaron, you're not playing? And everybody looking around, you're like, what the fuck? So then you engage in something. Now that's it. You're in.
Yeah, you're in.
You at work, you get to fucking get a suitcase, whatever the case may be, but they have to get you to play the game, and they test you, man. If you're down with this, if you're not down with this, and that's how they get out. I've seen it when I was young in Hollywood, man, 21, 22, 23, doing my thing. I remember going to audition. It wasn't a porn audition. And the guy used to tell me, he said, man, you go in there, it's for a t-shirt company or underwear line. He said, when they ask you to take your shirt off, get completely naked. I said, what the fuck? Get naked? I said, dude, I thought this was like, I'm not doing porn. This wasn't a porn set. He was like, oh man, yeah, get completely naked. And dude, you go in there, these white guys, you know, fucking, I don't know who they were, but they're, you know, in the fashion industry, you know, and dude, they're groomers. They want to see if you're down. If I would have went in there and pulled my whole shit out, and they would have known he's down, and then I probably would have got the next step. But I didn't do it. I took my shirt off, and I took my shirt off. Oh, you can put your shirt on. I was in and out of there in like 20 seconds. But
I don't think,
you know,
like I don't think people understand a couple things. I don't think they understand the nature of like psychopathy and how many people are clinical psychopaths. And I also don't they don't understand the grooming process or the, you know, or what Aaron and I would call a recruitment process under military terms, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a psychopath and you're working your recruitment process, your target, there's no wrong answer for your target. And this goes back to like your low level Masons or whatnot, right? So I'll use as an example this Eric Weinstein guy and his alleged meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, right? What he said and that went down in that meeting, and he's the only guy that's alive from that fucking meeting, so we got to take his word for it, is that he sat down with Epstein to talk about whatever the fuck. And on the table, like they're sitting at a dinner table, on the table, it was an American flag. And from Eric Weinstein's point, he was like, well, this was weird. Like, is this guy expecting me to like disrespect the country by putting my drink on the American flag kind of thing? So in a situation like that, that goes back to the party thing you're talking about. So if I don't put my drink on the table and I, you know, I sit there as an honorable dude and I have a conversation with this guy, well, that's fine. In this psychopath's mind, I've just selected myself to the square path, and he may need a square for a square hole later on. So it's not going to get weird, right? Like, and for those people that are selected squares, like it's a persona thing, right? Those are probably your diehard fucking Republicans and shit like that who think they're carrying like the torch of light. It's like, no, schmuck, you just got selected to be the square, right? But if I slap my drink down on the table and it spills all over the stars and I'm like, yo, what's up with these 12-year-olds? Like, okay, fine. Like you said, I've just selected myself to something else, right? There's no wrong selection if I'm a psychopath, right? If all I'm interested in is the ends to a means, it's all good. There's no wrong answer, right? And I don't think people can wrap their minds around a system that functions like that. And I'm like, that is the system. That's
well, it's like you said, they think everybody has a price, right? Like, or everybody's willing to do something. And what's the two biggest things, right? Or the three, right? You have money, you have drugs, you have sex. You know, I used to go to like, I knew a girl, like even when I was in the porn industry, right? I would go, but guys wouldn't do certain things around me. So I would go and hang out, work out with this dude, have a protein drink. You know, we would talk this and that. Big Herc, yeah, man, I'm gonna hook you up, man. I got this new girl, you can do the scene. And then he's like, I'm gonna holler at you tomorrow, though, hit me up. But then afterwards, it would be a different group of people. They'd be partying, doing stuff. But because of how I carried myself, he didn't feel comfortable showing that side of me. But I used to talk to other girls like, oh, man, as soon as you left, this happened, that happened. We did this and that. I'm like, damn, I didn't know he was on there. He's like, yeah, I'll go. You didn't know he did that, this? I'm like, what? So people fill you out to see what you are comfortable with. And I'm telling you, man, I've heard some stuff and I'm like, you know, even when I used to be on the set, sometimes I'd be like, oh, I'm good. You know, I don't feel comfortable. And I didn't really hang out. So I would go and, you know, and that's the cool thing about it is like, my business is all out there. So there's nothing you could blackmail me with, man. I've never done gay porn. I've had sex with a lot of women. I robbed banks, sold drugs, but I'm not like you guys. I'm not hiding shit in the closet like these dudes. You know, you guys are hiding shit in the closet. So for me on YouTube, you can say whatever, but everybody knows all my business. I never ratted on nobody. I never told on nobody. So, you know, I'm real with it. But for a lot of people, you know, when they see that, they're like, oh man, I can get this over you, this and that. So you can't really pin that on me. But like I said, these people would get in these situations, even in the porn industry, and they want to see how far you go, what they can get you to do, or if you're
so they can leverage you.
Yeah, will you go do this over here? And so the porn industry is is a baby window to the Hollywood industry, which is the window to politics, and it all ties in. Because I know porn producers used to tell me, he said, dude, there's some like people, ex-presidents, people, he said, when they make a call, they would call me, can you hook up these girls? That's why I know fucking Stormy Daniels is full of shit. And they would say, hey, I got this girl, can you get me some girls? He would call, like, say, hey, Stormy, hey, I got this guy coming through. You ready to, can you party this week? Can you party tonight? Oh, yeah, what is it? Oh, don't worry about it. It's a good guy, you know, because they figure he's going to make sure they're safe. Get a couple of your girlfriends. Oh, okay, what is it? Oh, you guys will make 10 grand, 15 grand. All these girls get together, go to some hotel in Van Nuys or Santa Monica, get up in there. It might be Old Bill. It could be anybody. They get in their party. They do whatever they're doing, party, drug, whatever, and keep their mouth shut. And that's how they pay their bills for the next 2 or 3 months. All the girls do it. I knew a lot of these girls. That's what they do. I didn't get out with it, but I know because I talked to the guy and they'd be like, yeah, man, you know, but that's the game. So when you talk about rape or you were forced, nah, man, you consented to that shit. You went along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
you guys are grease
that's
balls.
like staff in the Eyes Wide Shut party, basically.
Yeah.
And like you said, they test you. It's like if you're down for it, you know, and there's certain people that have access, or they know, like, you know, when Heidi Fleiss was doing her thing, they knew, like, hey, I can call her and, you know, make this happen. She knows this girl, that girl. I knew a guy off of he said in 1 year he made like roughly, I want to say 75, maybe like 65 to 75,000 messing with Charlie Sheen, providing him with different girls from the industry with all type of crazy sex acts. And Charlie Sheen would sit there and literally watch, and he'd be smoking crack and, you know,
yeah, that guy's wild.
He'd have his own party right there. And then he said, like, at a certain time, he told everybody get the fuck out. He would clean up and then get ready for the next morning to go do that 3 minute and a baby. And the dude was amazing. Yeah. He don't know how he did it. He would instantly sober up, fucking get his shit, put his teeth in, clean up, and go get his money. But like, dude, he's like, hey man, can you bring this girl and that girl? What about this? Can you bring that? You know, he was just whatever. And this guy was like, let me make it happen. And he was middleman. He said he made a lot of money.
And he's on a TV show called 2 Men and a Baby. Right.
So what's on the horizon for you, Herc? Like, what are you looking forward to in the future? What do you got going on? Like, you know, in relation to all this stuff, are you making any kind of plans? Do you see any significant changes coming in your life, or are you preparing for anything, or?
Really, man, just, you know, surrounding myself around people who are like-minded. So I know if I got to go, you know, go underground, I could go with the right people so that I have, you know, some good people around me. But, you know, still sticking to my message, just like, you know, looking at it from like the financial point of view, just paying attention to what's going on with the money system, with what they're doing with that, and, you know, trying to push this, you know, Fed coin and all this stuff, and just just like paying attention to the economy and just not being blindsided, you know, at the same time, not trying to get too caught up to where it drives you crazy, because it's a program too, and it drives you crazy. And if you get consumed with it, you'll miss a lot of other opportunities to really prosper or have a good life, and you'll just be like, it'll just drive you crazy. So I try not to get too overwhelmed in it, but at the same time, not be blind. And, you know, I'm still doing I want to, you know, doing my talking thing, mentoring people, you know, trying to get more involved in that, talking to young men, and just really pushing my channel, my brand. I got a brand called Never Settle for Average that I want to get, you know, a lot of young kids involved with, because they're pushing mediocrity. You know, everybody thinks they get a participation trophy and they don't. And yeah, man, just staying busy with stuff like that, man. Just really trying to do my part. I figure I'm like an ant on a goddamn elephant, man. But I mean, all I can do is keep putting out my voice, man. You know, it's not in me to bow down. You know, I wish I was more quiet. Maybe I'd be doing 6 figures a month if I could shut my mouth and just go along with it.
Yeah.
I can't. Something inside me makes me talk, bro. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing, but sometimes I'm like, why can't I be like these dudes? But I'm not cut like that.
Well, that's an interesting concept, because, you know, if Aaron and I were talking about how to pass sniper school, or how to pass EOD school, or how to be a raider, you know, or all of that, I mean, we do talk about that stuff, but if that was our main gig, if we were on here just selling Department of Defense, special operations, this, that, and the other thing, we would probably have a far bigger channel. I mean, we probably have a YouTube channel, period.
There's some big like veteran channels that do pretty well, and it's there, but like kind of like you, man, like we can't help ourselves. We're like, we'll talk about some veteran shit for a minute, but then we're like, yo, check out the Federal Reserve Bank, like that kind of shit, just because we feel like that's more important than telling war stories, like.
Yeah.
What do you think about channels like Jocko and Sean Ryan? These guys who kind of like.
Good question.
I like Jocko. I don't listen to it when it first came out. I caught a few of them, and there was a Jay Stryker Meyer, this guy that Cody and I, this Vietnam vet Lurs guy that Cody and I think is a fucking badass guy. I listened to those on Jocko and really enjoyed it, but I kind of don't pay too much attention to him. And then Sean Ryan, my instinct is to not like veteran shit for some reason. I don't know why, but I have caught a couple on Sean Ryan recently. He had that hacker that was busting pedos.
Oh,
that was great. So I like him. He's kind of growing on me, the Sean Ryan guy.
So I'll give you my take on both those. The first one, Jocko, represents your institutionalized guy. Like I haven't heard a lot of his personal opinions, and maybe that's because he kind of keeps them to himself. But what we're dealing with in a guy like Jocko is, a guy who considers his combat time in Ramadi, that snapshot in time. I've heard guys say it out of his own fucking mouth, to be like the pinnacle. For him, leading SEALs in combat in Ramadi was the pinnacle of his life. And I'm like, bro, that was the pinnacle.
Yeah, that wasn't. Yeah,
I mean, so he's also in a position where he is monetarily tied to this persona of hyper fit sort of military guy who come into your civilian construct and reorganize it, look for trim the fat, all that shit, right? And nobody's gonna ask him, but hey, bro, didn't you guys lose? I mean, nobody's gonna ask him that. Like, hey, you got this cool story about that country you invaded that didn't have weapons of mass destruction. And like at the end of the day, we're still fucking losing in Iraq, for some unknown reason. And we got kicked out of Afghanistan. So nobody asks guys like that, hey, cool story, bro. But now so that's my Jocko shit. Like I don't pay attention to Jocko at all. I can't deal with his podcast at all. Now, Sean Ryan, right? That's another SEAL. That's another interesting. That's an interesting fucking thread to pull, man. There's two guys out there who are quite popular right now, right? One of them made it onto Rogan, and that's dude, I just forgot the Green Berets name from Fieldcraft Survival.
Oh, Glover.
Yeah.
Glover. Yeah.
Now, Aaron and I know guys that know Glover and say he's a good dude, right? Like when Glover was standing up his American contingency thing during the whole, when police stations were burning and shit, Aaron and I were into it. Like, hey man, this is a website you can check out if you're driving through this neighborhood. He's putting out there some good gouge. There's political unrest that's going in this thing. I'm like, that's the type of thing that people could probably use, right? But I get super weirded out by the shit that Aaron and I got when shows like the Sean Ryan show are saying things that Aaron and I say or would have or did say, and they're up in the million fucking views, man. And one of the signals between Glover and Ryan is they were both tied into the fucking CIA, man. Now this is just me spitballing, but I'm not saying that they have a puppet up their ass telling them what to say. I'm saying that as an information operator, if I was interested in getting certain information out to the public, I can turn the volume up on that information, or I could turn the volume down. I don't necessarily have to change the information whatsoever. And this kind of gets into that end game thing, because what Sean Ryan is out there saying is it's starting to tiptoe super fucking close to what I would consider as advocating violence. Well, and this is go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had a thought, and I'm gonna touch back on what you just said.
Okay, you want to hit it now because I got a terrible memory. I'll forget.
When you said that, man, you did strike a nerve because you said like Sean Ryan, right? He had that guy, the hacker, on there who talked about pedophiles, right?
Yeah.
We did a video on a guy who was a pedophile hunter. Dude, as soon as we did that video, our channel tanked. I forgot about that. Our channel took a hit. We did this guy, and he said he's
Right.
going to Mexico and all this stuff. So, like you said, we talked about that, and we talked about some of the other stuff. But I'm like, how are we getting throttled down? And I'm
Right.
like, I watch Sean Ryan. I'm like, dude, he's talking about the same shit.
Because
I'm
you
like,
weren't the
dude,
appropriate conduit.
it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. When I look at like some of these other people,
Yeah.
like I look at like some of the stuff Candace Owens says, or this guy says, I'm like, who's backing these people, man?
So there's another thing that Sean Ryan is, and once again, the dude could be 100% honest, and it doesn't matter, right? I'm a retired fucking military deception guy, right? Like, I could find a guy who's just putting out what I want and turn the fucking volume up, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Check
So-
it up.
So the guy's gone back to church now. He's gone back to Christianity is what he's also putting out now. And in my perception of what's coming in this country is a flip to far fucking right Christianity, like crazy Christianity, like burning motherfucking heretics and like chomos on the street Christianity shit, right? So
Yeah,
he's talking about
pendulum
going,
swing.
yeah, he's talking about going back to Christianity. And the other thing that is really getting hit a lot in the veteran community is psychedelics, right? And I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of psychedelics. I'll tell you that they saved my life, but I'll also tell you that there's a huge history of psychedelics with the fucking CIA and MK Ultra, right? So if you think
used
about
for mind control.
if you think about the counterculture, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the Americans, these hippies, are like, yo, I'm not trying to get sent to this fucking rice paddy and die for nothing. And you start seeing like, you know, white blacks get together and like, hey, let's fucking burn this college down. You know, and then you get the counterculture. All of a sudden, LSD comes out of fucking nowhere, right? And just starts blasting everybody down. It takes people that were probably, because of the draft, getting close to overthrowing the fucking government and turning them into people running around in the mud with their titties out, man. Like,
Yep.
so one of the things the psychedelics helps you see is that, hey, man, I love Big Herc, dude. This isn't an other person. This is another person. This is somebody just like me, man, who's channeling the fucking creator somehow, man. That I can see our interconnected web through this, right? And so I'm far less likely to conduct violence. Now, even though, you know, I've got that switch in me that when business time comes, I've got this weird part of my brain that I can disarm a bomb by hand. I can shoot this motherfucker. So like psychedelics isn't going to turn a guy like me off once I decide to do something, right? It's just going to give me a different perspective on why I'm going to do it. But it's just like weed or anything else. You can be Joe Rogan and smoke weed, or you can be some loser that takes one fucking hit and now your whole life's wrecked, right? There's nothing saying who you are until you take the psychedelic, and you could spin off and fucking never do anything productive again and just chase, chase the answer, you know?
You made a great point, because you talk about psychedelics, right, and LSD in the 60s, and how they were able to use that to create all these situations and destroy the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
The Black Panther Party was doing a lot of stuff for the Black community. And I just listened to something the other day when they talked about, you know, the Crips and the Bloods and why they created that, and how the CIA created that, and how in these communities, how they used to have these, you know, they would have these different rags purposely to, you know, kind of create this chaos, because during that time, you know, you had some very powerful leaders, man, and you had a lot of people communicating. And one of the most powerful people you seen among that time that got assassinated by their own people was Malcolm X. Then you had Huey P. Newton. You had a couple guys from the Black Panthers, and they were doing community outreach. They were doing a lot of book things. They were doing a lot of stuff for getting drugs off the streets. And then they got infiltrated. But before that, they were actually doing good. And then when they marched on Capitol Hill with those M16s, they were like, right to bear arms. They're like, what the fuck? You mean to tell me they can legally bear arms?
Yeah.
Scared the shit out of them. They can never have that. And so going back to psychedelics and legalization of weed, it wasn't to really decrease the weed. Now they got what they call gas. Gas is a combination of weed, cannabis, but it's also cut with ecstasy. So you see the hypersexuality. You see all the people weird and, like you said, girls shaking their ass, everybody getting high, kids like tripping out. Because ecstasy can have, depending on what's in it, it can make you, like you said, you'll be dancing at a rave, tripping out, doing this, but you put the weed, and it's a combination. So all these communities, these inner city communities, these are young men. You take these young men, imagine if they were able to, you were able to make these guys basically soldiers or patriots, and think about how aggressive they are. Imagine if they were aggressive like that towards the right cause. But with weed and all the other shit going on with the like back in the day, the music was like, you know, they had the Doors, they had Jimi Hendrix, they had all this stuff, and they had Grateful Dead, so people were tripping out. But now you have these weirdos with Little Nas X, and people gender fluid. So instead of doing what they were doing, they got it now with the sexual shit, with this you know, satanic doing all the weird shit, and then on top of it, killing each other. They're not even a factor no more, because that was one of the biggest threats. So with the
mitigate
weed, with the music, that's a whole, what you just said, that's a whole nother CIA mind control ultra that people don't even know it's going down. But I never smoke weed. I don't smoke weed. I don't drink. I don't do none of that. But I see it, and I watch people. I'm looking back like, God damn, this shit is powerful, man. Because I've seen what they did, like you said, with the LSD, with the mind control, with that. And you can put certain music on, and somebody hear it, and they're like, they just go on one, like, let's go kill. I mean, literally, you could put certain, and they did it with Boys in the Hood. They put a certain song on. If a dude is high, let's go smoke this nigga, man. Let's go, come on. And they roll this, and then they get off. When they get off the sherm, what do? You shot 5 people. You're in prison for life. You shot 5 people, but you're so high.
Fucking crazy. Yeah.
And so when you peel the onion a little bit more on the psychedelic thing, and you look at because the shit's a Schedule I drug, man. So and if you look at the approved places where the shit's going down, right? Like Johns Hopkins. And most people are like, oh, Johns Hopkins. Those are medical people that do medical shit. I'm like, player. No. The medical shit is a front. They're weapons manufacturers.
They do a bunch of shit. Yeah. Cody and I worked with them before.
So when you see Johns Hopkins is doing a study with synthetic psilocybin, what they're doing is it's like removing indigenous medicine. It's like saying these lab coat priests who are evil as fuck and thieves, like I caught them stealing one time, like are now in charge of being the gatekeepers for fucking mental health, man. Like I was recently got an opportunity to potentially do a veteran retreat somewhere, and I started looking at it, and it's like, okay, well, this person attached to us from fucking Berkeley, and I'm like, there was another a British college, which is, you know, probably smack dab in city of London, not the fucking like town of London. It's like, you know, like the other London, you know, what was it? It wasn't Oxford. It was fucking anyway, Cambridge. She was tied to some other. It was one of the ones where you're like, oh, that's probably where High Noncery and fucking Jimmy Savile and sex pests are just running around. You know, I'm refurbishing a cabin, so there's a moth flying around here. I mean, so I look at those two personnel from that perspective, man. Like the Sean Ryan thing. Once again, like we got a buddy who's supposed to be on his show here pretty soon. I don't know the guy.
Yeah, and Herc, you probably have some perspective on this because, like, I didn't never heard of that dude until like a couple months ago, right? So he went from starting from zero. So as someone who's had a successful YouTube channel for as long as you've had it, this has got to be like blowing your mind a little bit, because like he went from zero to like it's the 6th biggest podcast in the country right now. You know what I mean? So and how does that happen that quick? And we know that they can control all that. Like they could, if they want to, they could create a podcast and just fill it full of numbers that don't really exist, you know? So there's a chance that there's something going on there, you know, but like Cody said, I don't know for sure.
Well, that's why I had to ask you, because like you said, it just started popping up on my algorithm. I've been doing YouTube for 10 years. And the first 2 years we got like, we went from like, we had 100,000, 200,000, and then we start shooting up 300,000, 400, and we were gaining so much momentum. But you know, the thing is, God damn, man, when all this shit started happening politically, and my mouth, you know, I'm just talking, but we had that pedophile hunter on there, and then, you know, my channel just took a really hard hit, but I didn't realize Hollywood was that deep in that shit, man. I didn't have no idea, but I started looking at our numbers. I'm like, damn, we were gaining, and we slowed up, like you said, instantly. And there was a guy who went on there who said before, I think he was on Rogan or one of these shows, who said, like, we can go in the back end, and if we wanted to stop the fucking show, we can shut it down. And so they can shut it down. And when all this stuff started going really political, one of my fans, he said, Big Herc, I found this website which you wanted, and it's talking about YouTubers. And I'm like, what, and he sent me a screenshot. Dude, it had me labeled as far right, non-woke. So that's right there. Yeah. So it tells you, and I showed that to YouTube because I've been to the YouTube studios and Big Herc, hey, I'm like, what's going on?
So they're all cool. Like when you're on the come up, they're all cool. They bring you out there and.
Well, even now, when they see your face, they lie. Oh, your content. We had a meeting with them. I had a meeting, me and my partner. Well, there's a lot of other people in your space now, and your channel kind of like your guests. And I'm like, that's fucking bullshit, man. Because if I put some shit in here about some homosexual or man getting raped, it goes fucking viral. So you guys, you throttle down what you want. And then somebody told you that basically that, when I showed them that website, they're like, I said, this says YouTube. Oh, that's not affiliated with us. We don't know who put that up there. But I'm saying it looks like you guys it's a sister site or some shit, So I know they're involved, bro. And it's like, I've never come out and said, hey, I'm Trump, I'm conservative, this and that. I just go back. I talk about family values. I talk about from a criminal side. Look, man, don't give up your fucking gun. Don't buy this bullshit. You want to have safe environments. The fucking, I'm not a victim, and they don't like that. If I was crying victim, and if I was saying black people need reparations, God damn it, it's because of white America is the reason why I went to jail 3 times. Man, I would have 2 million subscribers.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I
but it's probably, it's probably like deeper rabbit holes, but man, I'd be interested to hear your opinion about the entire like beginnings of gangster rap, man. Because growing up in Los Angeles, it was impossible to not be influenced by that culture. But it all popped off in like '93, right? And like almost instantaneously, and it's funny, like where does that money come from? Where's the money come from to like at the same time, like push out all these different gangster rappers, right? Like, and then you hear Ice Cube and his diss track back to Eazy-E, talking about they can't be the NWA crew for life with that Jerry guy, running the show, right?
Well, you know that the whole story is like basically the CIA is behind like MCA, Universal, Capital. They have an agent in those places, and so those places basically, when it comes time to like put certain money behind certain artists, they can kind of dictate what they want to control, and they know that algorithm for music can control communities. So when you say gangster rap, I was in juvenile hall in 1988, right? And back then I was in there with a guy named Sibo. He's one of the old OG gangster rappers also from Sacramento. And I remember when NWA came out, Too Short was popular back then, but NWA came out, right?
Mm-hmm. Short Tails,
gangster. Now they weren't really talking about they were talking about more like corruption. Eazy was kind of exposing in the hood, like people were like, damn, after Rodney King, they were exposing a lot of that. But they took that and, like you said, they got rid of Eazy-E. Jerry Heller, he got fired, he got caught stealing. They had to get rid of Eazy-E, so somehow he got AIDS. And then they pushed that whole narrative, because back then you couldn't gangbang on an album. It was like they wouldn't allow you to show guns on MTV, none of that. But you remember with Public Enemy, when they had Fight the Power, when they had a letter,
Fear of a Black Planet,
when they had all those people together and they were wearing the African, and it's like Black unity, they were like, fuck, we gotta stop this shit. It was too much.
And they were crossing over with like Anthrax.
Yeah, they had rock, they had the Anthrax, they were like collaborating. They were like, dude, Black hardcore punk rockers. I used to listen to punk rock, Social Distortion, TSOL, Suicidal Tendencies. I've been to mosh pits. I used to listen to that. So you take those group of guys hardcore black guys putting
That's
together,
shit.
bro.
Yeah,
These dudes saying "fuck the government." You know, this dude, that's scary.
yeah, you got a problem.
They
You got a
broke all
problem.
that shit up, and they started pushing this whole gangster rap, and then they got to the point now where they went to straight drill rap. You know,
Yeah, drill like the London shit. Yeah.
killing your ops.
Well,
But yeah, you're right, man. They use the music industry. Dude, they weaponize that shit, man. And it's like, you know, if you're an artist and you were talking consciousness, you were not getting any play, man.
well, and they do another creepy thing they do. I'll give you two examples, like Miley Cyrus and Little Nas X. All right, both of these two. They get them. They start out wholesome when they come out. So Miley Cyrus is Hannah Montana. So all these people in the middle of the country, all these like white Christian families, are letting their daughter watch Hannah Montana, listen to the music. It's all wholesome. It's all good. They stop paying attention for a couple years. They turn around. Next time they go, it's full blown full blown Satanism, full blown hypersexualized Satanism. Oh my God! Right? Same thing. Little Nas X. He comes out, Old Town Road. Okay,
Yep.
hey, look, you got a black country guy. That's pretty cool. Next thing you know, he's the gayest, most satanic dude on the planet, and it's to capture that group of young people and then move them into this
It's like a Pied Piper.
low frequency shit. Yeah, Pied
You're
Piper.
right.
It's fucked.
Yeah.
Right, man.
It's fucked, and it's
And-
totally
and-
obvious. Like it's right there in front of you. You know.
But you
And
see
how-
it. They don't see it. If you were to have this conversation, bro, with people, they wouldn't see it. They're like, you know, Nas, Miley, her dad sacrificed her.
Yeah. Gave her up.
I mean, how do people who can't, most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, you know, most of them are probably fucked in one way or another. Right. Like, I guess what it comes down to is how do you explain people that can't see past this year? How do you explain to people that there's folks with infinite money, the bag is just there, it ain't going anywhere. Like they have decades. We got a buddy named Bill who's like the world's most interesting man, right? Like the dude's life story is awesomely like funny and outrageous, like at all times, right? He was talking to a cat in the CIA and trying to sell an operation in Afghanistan. And the CIA guy's like, okay, well, how long do you think this is going to take, right? And I forgot the timeline. Bill told him, you know, we usually work on 6-month rotations. So I think he might've told him like maybe 18 months, you know, maybe 3 rotations or something like that. And so what Bill said, and I have zero reason to doubt anything Bill ever says, is the guy's like, yeah, no, we don't work on things that are like less than like 10 years. Like we got our concepts of operations, our con ops are like, this is going to take like 10 years, you know, like I'm going to find a kid and I'm going to grow that fucker from scratch. I'm going to go to some university somewhere and behind the scenes, I might just make sure that kid gets where he needs to be, you know, just, you know, cause all these other people are mostly burnt, like all these big names that we all know about, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, all these motherfuckers. Right. So, I mean, so that's the thing. It's like, you know, we're scrabbling down here trying to make sure that we're going to make it 5 months, a year, you know, and you got dudes like BlackRock with like 5 trillion in assets. They're like, yeah, if it takes us 20 years to crush this place, then fuck it. I mean, they're talking 2030. I mean, what they told America in 2020 back at our home command, they got all this 2030 shit. This 2030 shit comes out over and over again, 2030, right? To me, that's just clandestine messaging amongst the people that know what to look for, that, hey, over the next 10 years, we're going to work our way through this operation, right? And so Americans are like, oh, the 3 years of COVID is gone. We got 7 more years to go. There's like 7 more years of on-call fuckery that they're just like waiting. And then so they've got measures of performance, right? They have these things that they're going to do, your COVIDs, all this other bullshit. And then at 2030, they'll check their measure of, what's the other one, Aaron? I just forgot. MOP, MOE, like
Measures of effectiveness.
Measures of effectiveness.
Performance. Yeah.
At 2030, they'll probably have another Bilderberg group or something. And they'll be like, all right, where are we at? Okay, well, all right. Well, now we need to shift, you know, total surveillance isn't quite where we want it. So that's got to go to 2035. They'll just recock it. And people are like, they would plan for 10 years. Like, yeah, why not? If I set this thing in motion and then I can just go get on a yacht and just cruise the fuck around because I'm a billionaire. Like, who cares, man? Like, it's
How do you see though? I mean, what the fuck do we do, bro? I mean,
That's
sometimes, man, I've read Behold the Pale Horse. I've seen all this shit, man, and it fucks my head up, bro. And I'm
here's
like,
my answer.
and I'm like, okay, because like besides all this the sex trafficking, human trafficking shit, Epstein, he was involved in financial.
Oh yeah,
So
that's the big stuff. Yeah,
all this money. So you talk about a guy like me and you, right? In
Yeah.
order for us to get that kind of money, we say we had our team, we got this mindset, but the guy who runs the bank is compromised. So somehow we got to get this motherfucker. I mean, who do we go to? Who's the opposition? The only people I know of who consider themselves nationalists, who they hate with fucking a passion, is whoever's backing Trump's team. Because I know I know, like, they hate him with if he was so on their team, everybody hates him. They know, not to say that, there's certain things that maybe are questionable, but at the same time, like, you have Evil Incorporated, the Bilderberg Trilateral Commission,
yeah,
the
roundtable groups,
form, the whole, all these people, London Street, the city of London, and the city within London, the Vatican, all these people, and then you have those who are holding on here. This is America is the biggest trophy. This is the prize. This is Egypt right here. This is really where all the shit is. It's not Africa. It's here. Here's where the shit is. The pyramids. They got all that shit here. People don't even know it. They got pyramids in fucking Louisiana. They got pyramids down in South Carolina. They got shit here that is fucking so valuable. The underneath what we have. This is the grand prize. How the fuck do we defend it against these motherfuckers, bro?
Well, so when COVID hit, this is the other thing that COVID did for the military real fast is and so Aaron and I were together, right? We were between deployments, so we were both in the office at the same time. And one of the things that they tested on the military was, can you function this military at 50%? We went down to 50% manning, right? So that tells you a lot of things. That tells you that our military can soak up 50% casualties and keep on going. So if you want to toss us against Ukraine or fucking any place we're going to take mass casualties, that just popped in my head. I just wanted to get it out before I forget about it again. But so we sat in that room, man, and we looked at everything on the internet. We went down the fucking Q hole and we checked out, like, we tried to find the bottom of the internet while we were in there. And we would frequently use the whiteboard behind us and just like military planners, let's make some assessments. Let's check some shit out. And because I'm a solutions oriented guy. As the bomb tech, I was always the guy to get like the bad information. Like, hey buddy, there's a bomb over there. Like I can't punk out. I got to fucking go do something about it, right? So my brain just goes automatically to solutions. So when I hear this shit, like, yeah, the world's owned by psychopathic pedophiles. Okay, roger that. I've accepted that as true. Now my character won't let me just be like, well, I guess it's time to be a slave, right? I got to do something about it. So, what we've come up with is what we call the fucking GOOTS, GOOTS, or get out of the system, right? So the imposers, all they do is offer you shit. They kill you with your own poison, right? They offer you this usury. They offer you this bourgeoisie managerial lifestyle that's completely fake. And if you stay in the manager class, or that gentleman who was you had on your video, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was like a dude talking at a church or something, talking about the plantation became the plant. The fucking master became the manager, Yeah. The only way that I see is to start the process of freeing ourselves from these fucking people is to break contact. So when Aaron and I are in the military, right? If we get engaged by an enemy, we call it being on the X, right? We were walking down the road, guy opens up on us with a machine gun, we're on the X. We got two choices. If it's a close ambush, like you can see the duties right there, and you're not immediately taking massive casualties, you assault into the fire with as much violence as you can humanly fucking manage, right? In order to break you break their violence with your own violence. You assault into close ambushes. We're not in a close ambush. We can't reach these people. We can't get to them. Like, can't do anything about that. So then when it puts us in is a far ambush with a numeric or a foe with greater firepower than we have. So what you do in that situation is you got to break contact and fucking regroup. So what I came up with that is I gotta own my own fucking land, right? We were in a hurricane over there in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we were hanging our hat. You know, we lost power, we lost water, and all that shit showed me that, dude, I'm not a man. Like this dude gives me my water. This dude gives me my food. This guy gives me my fucking power. These guys give me my livelihood for going to this job. And if I don't dance like a puppet, they take my job, and then I can't pay here. I can't buy that. I was like, and all of those things somebody else owns. None of that shit comes from me, right? So somebody else can always take it from me. That they're all offerings. They're like, oh, hey man, you want to live in a $500,000 house in the suburbs? Well, you be a military contractor and you sell 10 hours of your day to the beast, right? And you fucking perform in all of our silly ass wars and all that. So the answer, I think, for what that'll help a lot of people out, or it's what we're doing, and I'm planning to be so successful at it that others see the path that we made and follow behind, is you got to consolidate, right? The way we do families in America right now is, you know, you have a son or a daughter, right? You put them in that 13-year prison sentence of fucking school. And at the end, they're going to try to go to college somewhere, probably in another state. They're going to meet a family in another state. Basically, you're going to atomize your fucking family. So you're no longer able to support each other. You know, grandma's not next door, man. I can't leave my daycare. And now my wife's got to get a job because we got to pay for that shit. So, but what I mean by consolidation is groups of people that are high trust with one another. Military guys, you know, dudes that fought on the same fire base for 7 straight months. And they know for a fact that's my guy right there. Our wives get along, you know, our kids get along. It could be a church group. It could be family members. It could be gang members, man. But you get together and you buy something off to the side, right? So Aaron and I went from both having mortgage payments, right, for our little pieces of our bourgeoisie that we had earned our way up to. You know, now we have one mortgage payment that we split. Basically, you consolidate down to reduce your debt, reduce your dependency. Like I listened to your episode with Moke, your buddy from back in the day.
Yeah.
Like if there was a guy like that, where you're like, hey man, we've known each other for 20 fucking years, man. I'm never going to stab you in the back. I'd rather fucking die. I died before I let anything happen to your kids or your wife. Let's fucking click up, man. That's what drug cartels do. They're like, hey, instead of killing each other, let's click up. Well, the entire government's a giant fucking clique against us. So now we just need to use that against them. Like instead of you're getting Big Herc's tax money off of his property, you're getting Cody's, you're getting Aaron's. Well, fuck it. Now you're just getting one. We went from paying you $7,000 in property tax a month or at the end of the year to now we all live on the same 50 acres. And now we're paying these guys $1,000 in fucking property tax.
When
Aaron, you want to jump in?
Yeah, you can, there's some examples of communities that are doing this. Like you got the Amish, you've got the Hasidic Jews, you've got like to a certain extent the Mormons. And I'm not saying you got to live the way they live, but you get your high trust, you know, like Cody's talking about, you figure out who, you know, your high trust community of like-minded people. Okay. And if you don't already have them, you have to go meet them. You have to go figure out ways to, you know, and the internet's useful for that. So you get these people. And then there's these legal remedies for stuff like these private membership agreements and private members. There's stuff that you can take a lot of your life and your lifestyle out of the public and into the private. And I'm not an expert at it. I'm still just learning, but there's a lot of people that it's the same kind of people that are into this like sovereign citizen, you know, I don't need a driver's license type shit. Oh, fuck all that. I'm talking about there's a bunch of legal remedies where you can do commerce just with your community and protect yourself from the government. And that like I said, I'm not an expert in it, but there's ways to do it. But it starts with reducing your dependence. Like, hey, look, you know, if these guys shut the power off and the food trucks stop coming, I got a problem, right? So you start to work towards, and maybe it isn't that everybody goes out and buys a farm, but maybe you know some people that are a small scale farm so that you can at least get access to produce and meat and stuff like outside of the supermarkets. Like you in your network, you've got people that are producing food, producing energy, you know, that kind of stuff. And
maybe everybody doesn't have to disconnect. Like, so in our situation, I disconnected first because I couldn't fucking go to that building another day, dude. It was like killing my soul to be in there. Right. So I was ready to punch out, but Aaron wasn't. Aaron had other ties that bind, but it's all good because I look at it like I'm the advanced party out here. Like I'm the guy that was ready to just go sit on a farm somewhere. So maybe out of your group of people, there's one family that's like, hey, we're ready to go build a fucking house out of toothpicks. You're like, okay, cool. That's the family that's going to be there first. Right. And they're there chilling and everybody is putting money towards that spot. Right. I think we've even been atomized in our culture, man. Like everybody is like, okay, like I got my house in the suburbs and this is my little kingdom. And I barely know any of these fucking people around, but we've been taught that somehow that's normal instead of living in a extended family, extended friend, like village type situation. I mean, I'm curious to know like when the fuck cities started, like what year did cities start and how did they get people into those things, man? Like that's one of the things where I think understanding that trap. But really, I mean, that to me, that is a solution that is, you can put positive energy towards.
You're actually, it's funny you said that because me and Moke were talking about that. And he was, in that conversation we had, I can't remember if we said it on camera, but we were talking about, because he has a bunch of kids and he was talking about getting a piece of land and basically creating a compound. And I've talked about it before and, I talked with my wife about it, but like you said, you get like-minded and, in LA, a lot of Russians do that. A lot of Armenians do that. They get these big ass houses, 9-10 bedrooms, bro. They're like they're living in these mansions, but you got fucking 15 incomes. Everybody stacking money. You go to their damn auto repair shop. It's all family members working there. Everything is them. So they don't have outside people. So you don't know what their books are. You can't. These dudes are running their own shit, and that's how they get out. I know some Vietnamese. They do the same thing. They got great grandparents. I grew up around a lot of Filipinos. Same thing. They do that and they stack their money up. So like you said, I'm over here and I'm paying this damn mortgage. Got a big ass house. Me and one person. I got 5 beds. Why not take advantage? And like you said, if you got the same mindset, and I'm all about creating a tribe or a community that's all on the same. And we gotta know, like you said, we don't know half the people in our neighborhood, but if I know you're on the same time, I'm over here on the same time, this guy over here, I can make a call to whatever state and be like, hey man, I'm passing through. Is there
safe havens?
Hey, if you're in Arizona, come through, man. I got a spot, plenty of room. It's safe over here, So you have these refuges, and we're gonna, like you said, we're gonna have to have that. If we're traveling across country, you want to make sure in every little spot you go, like almost like Mad Max, you can pull in there, pull the garage down, pull your car in. And, you're in. You know what I mean? So that's a great.
That's it, man.
That's a great idea.
Well, I tell you what, you're ever in North Carolina, you got a spot for sure with us, man.
Safe haven.
Have you ever passing through the hills of North Carolina?
If you come to Arizona, bro, I'm out here. It's only me and my wife. We got a lot of room, so it's one of the reasons why I came out here was to get away. And I've seen how different I was from a lot of people I thought were my friends. A lot of people I realized, dude, we think totally different. It's crazy, man. I lost a lot of friends, man. I used to have big fight parties. I used to have a lot of, party get-togethers, buy food and I realized that shit was fake as fuck. So you got to clean house, man. And you got to keep the people who you feel are true, close to heart. And I'm totally with it. Like I see how, by doing that, what you're talking about, but that is one of the first things is creating that. And as you develop more of those, you build strength in that. And then, people can't sell you bullshit because you guys already know, hey, we're not with the bullshit.
Yeah. We don't want any of it. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, hell, man.
Well, damn, man, we had you for 2 hours.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I mean to take your whole night up like this, but that is, you get to talking. It's fun, man.
No, man, it's good to talk to people, like I said, like-minded. And, it's the breath of fresh air when you see that people understand what's going on because, dude, literally, I talk to 1 or 2 people a week, and it's like we bombard each other, but it's like it's far and few between, man. And we're living in some strange times right now. I mean, we're living through history, and we're going to see a lot of shit, bro, going down here. And at least we're in the right state of mind. You can't go in scared. you got to be ready.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of comparisons between combat and probably the federal penitentiary system. And the good point is like we've been through that stuff, and we're in a position because of those experiences to lead people that might need leadership, in the future. So that's something to kind of some positive thing to come from all that stuff. You got some stuff you want to plug before we check out?
Yeah, man, for sure. I don't have a bar up here, but I got soap, man. I call it wash your ass.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm gonna buy some of that.
Man. Wash your ass. Go pick you up a bar of soap. But
nice.
Yeah, so the BigHerc916.com. Check out the YouTube, Fresh Out. And man, I look forward to doing this with you guys again, man. Great conversation.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. Yeah,
Awesome,
definitely.
man. Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks, bud. All right. Good night.
All right, go check out Big Herc, everybody. We're gonna end this thing and chop it up.
All righty. Later.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if